everyone, and welcome to a special Tuesday episode. I'm very excited because we have quite the treat for you today. And I've had a chance to talk with Susan before, but Dave has not, and I know he's going to absolutely adore her. We've already been chatting a little bit backstage, but I know you'll have a ton of questions for her because she's lived, I think, probably one of the most interesting lives out of anybody that I've ever met. So it's a good one. You guys are going to enjoy it. But let me tell you a little bit about Susan. If you've never seen Susan before or heard, she has a million and one interviews as well. But Susan Masino has been a rock journalist for over 30 years. She has written 6 books, created and hosted the 94.1 JJO local stage radio show from 1997 to 2004 and produced 8 local music compilation CDs. She also appears on the Van Halen DVD, The Early Years, and Let There Be Rock, the movie. Her book, The Story of AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, has been published in at least 11 languages. I don't know if there's any more at this point. And she also has a new book, or has a book, AC/DC, Frequently Asked Questions, All That's Left to Know About the World's True Rock and Roll Band. True rock and roll band, those are bold words, Susan knows.
I love AC/DC.
Absolutely. She also has another book out called The Secrets of the Universe. And she has not only been interested in rock and roll, but she's also interested in the paranormal. She has done some paranormal investigations. We're going to talk about all of that. So without further ado, let me bring Susan on. Hey, Susan, welcome to the show.
Susan.
Hey, guys. Hi, Lynn.
Hey.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so excited. So it's been a little while since you and I chatted. Probably been, gosh, I don't even know if it's been a year maybe now at this point. It had to have been.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, yes. So, and Dave hasn't ever had the chance to talk with you yet. So let's talk first about what were you into first, the paranormal or rock and roll?
Oh, that's a tough one because I was born into the music business. But when I was very young, when I was born, my parents owned a ballroom and they had big bands. This was in the mid 50s. And I wish I could remember it. I can remember the music coming through the walls and, they had the Dorsey brothers, Louis Armstrong, the legendary drummer Gene Krupa played there. And so I grew up into that. But when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, my grandmother believed in the afterlife. She used to talk about it matter-of-factly. And one night, it's kind of funny to tell a little kid this in the dark while you're going to sleep, but she would tell us stories. And one night she told us about how when her mother passed away, that her mother reappeared in her bedroom to say goodbye. And that opened the floodgates for me.
Yeah.
Because I even as a little kid, I wanted to know, is that good? Is that bad? Does that mean she's here all the time? Does that mean she can come back? It just a billion questions.
Yeah.
And from that day on, I wanted to know, what's out there. And I love it. I love the paranormal. It's so fascinating.
It is too. It is it's definitely a shared love we both have of the paranormal. And it's funny because I don't know if I ever told you this, but my first experience with the paranormal was I was about 2 years old and I actually didn't realize I was this little because I do remember it. And I was talking to my mom about it not too long ago. And she was like, you remember that? Because I thought I was a little bit older, but I remember I was in my room asleep and I felt someone sit on the edge of my bed. So I looked up and it was my great grandmother. She was sitting on the edge of the bed. And didn't think anything of it because it was just my grandmother, right? And so went back to sleep, even though she didn't live with us or anything. I guess I was 2, so wasn't really thinking about that, but just saw, okay, grandma there, gotta go back to sleep. Wasn't anything threatening or whatever. And I remember telling my mom the next morning that I saw her sitting on the edge of my bed, and my mom just turned like white. And I even remember back then thinking like, it was a different reaction than you were used to seeing as a kid. And she just kind of, okay. And kind of kept going with things. And then years later we were talking and I said, oh, I don't know how it came up. I brought it up and she was just like, she's like, well, the reason that I had that reaction was your grandmother had passed away that night. And in the middle of the night. Yeah. And
Oh,
I mean, she hadn't told me because I was 2 apparently.
yeah.
And then again, years later, more recently, when I was talking to her about it, she's like, "I can't believe you remember that. You were 2." And because I thought I was like maybe 4 or 5. Um,
Oh, that's
so
so cool, though. You know, that's
definitely,
really cool that you got to see her.
and stuck with me, obviously, I
Mm.
can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I can remember that.
Yeah, me too.
So I can't, yeah. So I'm right there with you. It was sparked from the beginning with me, the paranormal. But
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
then what got you into your parents owned a was it a ballroom studio, you said?
It was a actual ballroom on the Wisconsin River in
Oh,
Sauk City, Wisconsin, called the Riverview Ballroom,
oh, very cool.
and they had that for about 3 years of my life, and then they bought a
Mhm,
hotel, bar and restaurant up north, in Wisconsin here
mhm,
around Wausau, and they had live music every weekend, and they just, I just grew up watching musicians load in and out, and getting to know their families that would come with them, and so that was, I was very fascinated by that. I loved music, obviously, because
mhm.
it was all around me. My dad likes to, he'd like to make us or laugh at the story of, they my babysitter was the jukebox, because he was running the bar, my mom was
Yeah.
running the restaurant, and so they put me a stroller in front of the jukebox, and he said, "God forbid I'd run out of quarters," because you know. So that kept me pretty happy. But then when we lived up north, and we lived, in Wisconsin, there's a lot of
Mhm.
sacred land here
Yeah.
because of the Native Americans, and we lived close to the Menominee reservation up there, and great people. We made so many great friends, and they would come to, my parents would have live music, and there were no bar time.
Mhm.
There was no bar time back then, so the band would play till like 4 in the morning. You
Wow.
know, and so I got to live with that. But when we lived up there, I started having out of body experiences that I didn't know what they were,
Mhm.
but I would start to fall asleep, and then all of a sudden the door would look like it went, grew to 50 feet, and the windows would go to 50 feet big, and then I would be on the ceiling looking down on myself in bed. And it used to terrify me because I
Yeah.
didn't know what they were. And then it's funny, I call them entities, but I didn't see them, I could hear them.
Mhm.
And at night, while I was falling asleep, they would come into my room and tell me stuff. I wish I knew what they were telling me, but I would get upset because I would sit up and tell them to be quiet, because I was afraid my parents would hear that I wasn't sleeping, and I'd get in trouble. So that was my first psychic type of experiences where, you know, I didn't tell anybody about it because I didn't think, they wouldn't believe me anyway. But that kind of started it. And I've had prophetic dreams all my life.
Mhm.
Um, I'm well, I'd say a psychic empath.
Mhm.
I pick up other people's energy way too easily. Actually,
Mhm.
I have to I have to really work at protecting myself. And then, about, I think it was 2008, I met a couple of ladies here in Wisconsin that, what they were working for the Chad Lewis's unexplained research,
Mhm.
that Chad Lewis does, like Haunted Wisconsin, Haunted Michigan. He
Mhm.
does all these books. Great guy. And I hooked up with them and I did 3 speaking engagements. We went and we did investigations, and I ended up going to Deadwood, South Dakota, and Bobby Mackey's in Wilder, Kentucky. Don't
Mhm.
go there.
Ah,
Don't.
don't say
I'm
that. It's only an hour from here, and I've been dying to
Yeah,
go.
it's just gonna make her want to go more.
No, 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 no.
Probably
I'm
will.
honestly, if somebody paid me, I wouldn't go back there.
Really? Okay, I've
That's
heard the
yeah.
story, but we'll circle back to it. But I don't,
Okay.
because I want to continue with what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I got involved in that, and then I ended up going to Gettysburg,
Mhm.
and I just, you know, I love everything about it. So I've done a lot of research, and I lived in Savannah. I just moved back
Mm,
to Wisconsin from Savannah, so I was down there for 7 years,
I love it
and
there.
saw a lot.
Mhm.
My girlfriend saw an entity. My sister saw an entity, and then I saw some pretty interesting things myself. So very haunted city.
Oh yeah, Savannah. It's one of those cities you walk into and you're just like, okay, there's more here than what we can see,
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
can feel it. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's totally a different energy.
Yeah.
It's, or like when we went to Gettysburg,
Hmm.
you kind of drive down into Gettysburg, and as soon as you get closer to the city,
Hmm.
it feels like you're almost underwater. Like it's such heaviness. So, yeah,
Sorry about that.
and then I had some very interesting experiences in Gettysburg too. So,
Yeah, that's another place that I've always wanted to go, but haven't been to
yeah.
Gettysburg yet. But I'm
Yeah,
dying
I
to
would
go
I would
there.
recommend that. That
Yeah.
was very fascinating, and very sad.
Hmm.
Very sad
Yeah.
because when I went out on the battlefield where the major battle took place in Gettysburg, you can see forever. There's
Hmm.
nowhere to hide. And
Yeah.
that's what really hit me was like, oh my goodness, this side and that side, coming up face to face with each other and not really anywhere to hide.
Yeah.
It was a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And I don't know who planned that, but when you look at it, you're like, no, this would not be a good time to meet up. Okay,
Yeah.
there's no ground cover, there's no woods to hide in, there's not a lot. Well, there are some woods behind the battlefield,
Yeah.
but it just it kind of was shocking to see how wide open it was, and
Yeah.
how horrible that must have been. So,
Oh, I can only imagine. So did you see anything? Did you have any like interesting experiences while you were in Gettysburg?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My friend who had been there many times,
Mhm.
he took me out on the battlefield,
Mhm.
and we were walking for about 2 hours,
Mhm.
possibly. And literally by that time, I could taste blood in my mouth,
Oh my gosh.
and I just told my friend, I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to get
Mhm.
off this ground. And there were certain places. There's a place where there were like two big rocks that people could hide and shoot from. It called it the Devil's Den.
Mm.
And he's like walking all over it. I wouldn't walk in it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
go inside that area at all.
Mm.
And so then he wanted me to see one more place before we left. He was kind
Mhm.
of a fanatic about it. And so we went to, I think it's Silver Springs. I might be wrong with that, but it's not far from the battlefield. And it was another place where a big massacre happened.
Mhm.
And so we drove over there and we parked, and there were a lot of people on the battlefield. You got the ghost hunters and tourists and all of that. We get over to this area and there's nobody there. I
Mm.
mean, it was just us. So
Wow.
we parked the car, and we walked around, and then we started walking down this road along a tree line of
Mm.
woods. And usually when I get information, I just get it, like I
Mhm.
just know it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can hear people. I can
Mm.
actually hear somebody talking to me. And as we were walking down this road and the sun was going down, so it's starting to get, a little bit dark out, I felt this kid come running at me, rushing. He was rushing me, and he called me mama, and he said mama. The sound of terror in his voice I can't
Mm.
really describe.
Yeah.
It was that bad.
Ugh.
And he said, "Mama, mama, please help me go home. I just want to go home. Please,
Mm.
please help me go home." And it just, oh my God, it was so hard. It was heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
so I told him, I said, okay, okay. I said, the war is over. I said, you don't have to hide here anymore. I said, the war is over, and I'm going to bring in some light for you. I'm going to bring
Mhm.
in some light. And when you see that light, go into that light because your friends and family are waiting for you.
Mhm.
And then the tears are just streaming,
Yeah.
I'm just, the tears are coming. and my friend stepped over it to put his hand on my back, and he went to touch me, and he jumped back and let out a yelp, and I turned to him and he said, "Oh my God," he said, I feel like I put my hand into a barbed wire fence." And I told him, I don't know if he really believed me. And I told him, I said, we are talking to somebody. There's somebody here with us. And
Yeah.
I think the young man that I was talking to didn't like the guy that I was with, ended up not being such a great guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he liked him.
Mm.
And so he was protecting me when he went to touch me. And so I had that. And then that night we stayed at the Farnsworth Inn, where I highly recommend staying there. It's full of history. And we went on the ghost tour, and they told us, he stayed in the Sarah Black room, and up in the attic of the Farnsworth Inn is where they would lay in the windows and be snipers.
Wow.
And the first female civilian, Jenny Wade, was hit by a bullet that came out of the Farnsworth from the attic.
Okay.
So they said, well, at night you will hear them walking in the attic. You will hear their boots walking back and forth. And then they also described, I was staying in Jeremy's room. It was so funny, you're sitting there and they're telling you all these stories, and they're like, well, who's got Jeremy's room tonight? Now, like, me, And what they described is that Jeremy was a little boy that was hit by a horse and buggy. He actually died in the bathroom of Sarah Black's room. So where my friend was staying, they said, you're going to hear boots on the ceiling, and then you're going to feel the father of the little boy pacing around the bed. You're going to feel that energy. So, okay, we knew that. It was going to happen. And she said with Jeremy, his room that I was staying in used to be an open porch where 2 soldiers were shot, and they made it into a bedroom, and they put all these toys in there, and it was, it was very, quaint and so historical. And so that night, I go back to my room, and I went to sleep like a champ. I didn't have a problem with any of it. I was, I'm kind of like that anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to haunt me, I'm going to sleep anyway. So, and so I dreamed that I played with a little boy all night. And I kind of thought it was my son when I woke up. I thought, well, I was having a dream about my son. Well, that morning, the first thing was these people that it sounded like they were in my room, these ladies that supposedly were like next door to me. They woke me up just by talking. And I thought, geez, what, the walls are paper thin, obviously. And so I fell back asleep. Next thing I knew, a little boy and a little girl running through the halls. They're banging doors. They're laughing. They're making all this noise. And I'm laying there, and the sun's out, so I'm laying there thinking, can't you guys go outside and play? It's not a bad day out there. You might want to go out there. And so I go back to sleep again. Next thing I know, my buddy is banging on my door. And I open my door, and he's all dressed. He's got his coat on. He's got a suitcase. His eyes are like this. And he said, I didn't sleep a wink last night. And I said, why? And he goes, well, I could hear him. I could hear him in the attic. And, he went through the whole thing of what he said he was going to hear. He even recorded it. He had a recording of it. And I said, that they told you that was going to happen. And
Right.
So, I mean, really? And he was supposed to be the one that was so into Gettysburg. And so I got ready. I said, I'll meet you when I'm ready. And, we went to check out. And I mentioned the little kids to the lady at the front desk. And she kind of laughed, and she said, we don't have any kids staying here. And I said, no, there was a little boy and a little girl. And she goes, oh, that's Jeremy and Sissy. Everybody hears them.
Wow.
So, and another thing was there were toys everywhere in this room. And I noticed before I left that there were 3 toy soldiers laying down.
Mhm.
on the shelf that were standing up the night before.
Oh, wow.
So I
I
thought
had a
that was
busy night.
interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was fun filled.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it wasn't scary to me.
Yeah.
For me, if I would have heard the guys up in the attic, I would have gone up. I would have gone back up there
Me
and tried
too.
to talk to them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have tried to talk to them to see if I could get to communicate with them. But you know,
Yes.
but my buddy he was scared witless. He was just,
Yeah. It's
and
so funny. I'm like you. If I hear it, I'm gonna go like, "Ooh, let's go talk." And
I know.
I
Who
will go
is it?
rushing in head first. Like it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Some people just get like really creeped out by it, I guess. Which is
Well,
like I try to understand, but it's so foreign to
well,
me.
he was told. He was
Right.
already told. If you're in the Sarah Black room tonight, this is what you're going to
Yeah.
experience.
Right.
And he had it recorded. I heard it on the recording,
That's
and
cool.
it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think so
So
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would definitely go back there.
Oh,
That it's just such an amazing place,
yeah.
very filled with history, and so I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
I can't wait to go. We were talking about
Mhm.
maybe trying to do something this summer with some friends of ours. So
Mm.
we'll see. It would be really, really good. Which I've converted her. It's a husband and
Mm.
wife, another couple.
Oh,
She was one of those people that was terrified. She's the one now that's like, "Are we going to do any ghost hunting this weekend?" Like, yes, Haley.
oh, yes, very cool.
Yep. Yep. So they came here. The last time we did was actually here in our house. We have a ghost here
Oh,
in our
okay.
house. Yep. I got a video. I'll have to send it to you of the
Oh,
microphone. Of it turning. I don't have like, I wasn't looking at the microphone when it turned, but
mm,
I had the headphones on. So I was monitoring while I was looking at something else. And I heard someone handling the microphone. And so I
oh,
turned and I was like, I'm pretty sure that was facing a different direction. So then later I went back and looked and it was, and we
Mm.
tried for like over an hour or more to debunk it. Couldn't make it
yeah.
turn the same way that it was. It was
Mhm.
really crazy, but
Oh, yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. Bobby Mackey's. We'll use Bobby Mackey's as our transition. So we'll talk ghosts and then we'll move to music. So
Well,
tell us about
yes,
Bobby Mackey's.
I went to Bobby Mackey's with the ladies that I talked about that
Mhm,
got me involved with their group, and we met up with a team from the East Coast,
mhm,
and there Keith Age was there, and and my friends Dawnette Springer Cook and Tamara Springer Gleason. Those were the two
mhm,
girls that kind of brought me into the fold, and we went down there with their cousin Chad. So we had a guy with us, which came in handy later.
mhm.
uh, Great guy. But we went to Bobby Mackey's the night before as a meet and greet to meet all the other ghost hunters, and we streamed live on the internet the next night, and they had a radio, what is it, Shannon Sylvia and her
Mhm,
husband Jeff, they had a radio show at the time, so
mhm.
they were live during it, and very, very exciting. But the night before, we went there, and I didn't take it seriously. I had people tell me not to go there. I
Yeah.
actually had people email me and say, it's the gates to hell. You don't want to go there. And I'm
Right.
thinking, sure it is.
Yeah.
How bad can it be? Come on. So we went there the night before, and I wasn't into protecting myself
Mhm.
and keeping, my white light strong, and, my aura, or if you will.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it. I just went to have a good time. We were going to have drinks. We were going to meet everybody. Bobby Mackey's band was going to play. It was a Saturday night, so it was very festive. And as soon as the four of us, myself, my two girlfriends, and their cousin, the four of us, we walked into the bar, and as we got over near the dance floor, we all felt the room spin, like
Mm.
just once.
Mhm.
And we all stopped. All four of us stopped. And as I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me, and one of my friends says to me, "Did you just feel that?" And as she said that, I felt something walk through me. like completely go through me. Like it's just it's really hard to describe. And I turned around and I went, ew. It's like, what? Seriously? So I didn't think anything of it. So we had a good time that night, and we went back to the hotel. The next day we got ready and we went back. And then at night now, you're doing the ghost investigation, and there's probably 30 people.
Wow.
And they broke it into like 6 groups of 5, and some were here, some were there, different parts of the bar. And it was cold, and they had to turn the heat off so there you can record.
Yeah.
So it was cold. It was uncomfortable. That's the way I looked at it. It was uncomfortable. And there's so many layers of hauntings in Bobby Mackey's. You go back to the Native Americans. And then there was actually the Underground Railroad went through there because they're right on the river. So you have that. And then it was a slaughterhouse back in like the 1800s.
Yeah.
And then it was like a kind of a mafia hangout in the 50s. So there's so many things going on. And people like to provoke, actually the guys, Zach and everybody on Ghost Adventures. One of the first times they went to Bobby Mackey's, Zach was provoking, and he got 3 long scratches down the middle of his back.
Yeah.
Which, and I didn't take it that seriously. It felt, it was sad. It was just kind of creepy, there's just a really creepy feeling in the place. And we were trying to pick up energy, and I was with the group of my friends, and how you have the green little dots, the grid across the walls, and so we're sitting there in the dark, and and like I said, I pick up, sometimes I can hear things, and they one of them says, what are you getting? Are you picking up anything? And I was getting these wise guys swearing at us, telling us to get the F out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kept hearing that in my, we're sick of this, get out, and I was afraid to say, well, actually we're being sworn at right now.
Right.
Yeah. There's some guys here that are really not that happy with us. And so that was, the biggest thing that happened to me. The second night was, I heard some wise guys that weren't real happy. So we leave about 2 a.m. We were there, quite a bit, 4 or 5 hours. And we all went to the same restaurant, ate the same food, went back to the hotel, and something told me to pack my stuff and lay out an outfit because we're headed back to Wisconsin the next day. And it's a 7-hour drive. So they crashed, and I packed my suitcase and I got my outfit out, and I went to sleep. About 5:30 in the morning, you know how you wake up like when you have the flu, and you wake up and all of a sudden you're like, this something's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up in the bathroom at about 6 a.m. and it was horrible. I mean, I don't want to get too graphic here, but it was really bad. I was purging nonstop, and it was hours upon hours of this.
Gosh.
It was crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy. Obviously, I believe I was poisoned. I was psychically poisoned by whatever went through me. And years later, I went back to Wisconsin. The cousin had to carry me to the car because I couldn't walk. That's how sick I was. And 2 days later, I ended up in the ER, severely dehydrated.
I can
I
imagine.
And they did every kind of test they had. There's nothing wrong with me physically. They couldn't find anything. So years later, Jack Osborne does a show called Portals to Hell.
Yeah.
And he and his partner, I think her name is Katrina. Yeah. They went to Bobby Mackey's.
Yeah.
And they had Cindy Kazi. Yeah, she's really cool too.
Yeah.
And she was doing automatic writing. And in her automatic writing, it came out, I can make you sick. And so, nothing happened during the show, but at the end of the show, they show a disclaimer on the screen that says, Katrina went back to the East Coast, Jack went back to LA. Within 48 hours, they were both admitted to the ER.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Don't go to Bobby Mackey's. I'm telling you,
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
I'm serious.
I'm convinced now.
So now your friends that you went with, did they shield themselves and did they have any issues while they were or after they were there?
They were smart enough to protect themselves.
Yeah.
They were fine. See, whatever that was bounced off their cousin and both my friends and went right through me.
Oh.
And
gosh.
it was like being slimed in the Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
That's how it felt. Yeah.
Oh,
So I've been invited back several times. I won't. And it's mainly, I believe, there are entities there that can make you sick.
Mhm.
And too many people go there and provoke.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in that.
No,
That's a
I don't
very
either.
big mistake. If you're going to investigate or research any place, do
Mhm.
not provoke,
Right.
because they will answer.
Right.
You'll get answered. And they were doing that. The one thing that did happen the night of the ghost hunt, if you will, was they were provoking in the basement where the well is, where a woman's head was, she was decapitated and her head was thrown down that well, is what is believed.
Right.
And they were provoking, and this grown man was pinned up against the wall against something he couldn't see and ran out of the place in tears.
Well,
So
that's what you get.
that did happen while I was there.
That's crazy. So I'm surprised that the staff doesn't. I mean, maybe they like it because it's definitely dramatic, but I'm surprised that a lot of places will have a rule, that they don't want you provoking. So it's
I hate to say it, but they make a lot of money off of this every weekend.
Yeah.
And so, Zach, for a while, Zach and his team wouldn't go back to Bobby Mackey's. None of them. They finally did years later, and they interviewed people that worked there and people that used to work there, and every single one of them had a bad story, had a negative thing to talk about, that they were affected in some way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I know you live close by.
I know.
Go to Gettysburg instead.
Yes, yes. Well, Waverly Hills isn't too far from us too, so I think it's like 3 hours. So we'll go
Oh my
there.
God.
Those are my people. I used to be a therapist. I can deal with the insane asylum.
Yeah, that one place, Waverly. I don't know if I'd go in there.
No,
I don't think so.
When I first graduated, I worked at an old state hospital. When I was there, it was turned into, they did have outpatient and we did have a locked unit, but it was a part of Harvard Medical School, and we did research, like psychiatric research.
Okay.
So all of our offices were in the old rooms, and it was yes, it was a very creepy vibe, but I kind of loved it. It looked like it probably should have been torn down already. It is now. I was very sad that it got torn down, but it just had so much history. But it was creepy. It was definitely creepy. But I'm kind of like, you know what? Those are my people. I love them.
Well, yeah, for me, I think for a place like Waverly, for me, it would just be too sad.
Yeah.
I would pick up on a lot of the suffering there.
Yeah, absolutely. See, that's the difference. I'm not an empath. So
yeah. Unfortunately, I'm a sponge. I like soak it all up.
Dave can be like that too. I am like what you talked about too, claircognizant, where I just receive information, but I don't have the emotional side of it. So I think maybe that makes me a little more okay with places, because I don't get that. I think it would be very difficult. Yeah, if you're experiencing their emotions, I think that would definitely make it much harder.
Because I've never done I had a chance to go to the old city jail in Charleston, South Carolina, and nope. Nope.
Well, I went to the Ohio State Reformatory last summer. That was really cool.
Oh my!
It was where they filmed Shawshank.
Oh wow! Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So there was the movie history too, but it was a really cool place.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Fascinating,
Yeah.
how much energy a place can hold,
Yes.
and how much residual energy and even current energy that's still there.
Hmm.
So,
Yes. But you know what? The worst place in there was the chapel.
ooh, really?
At least for me. For
Oh
me.
my
But then,
goodness.
like, I was joking around because I'm a witch. I've been a witch for 20 years, and I was like, maybe they just don't like me in here. Nobody else seems to have a problem with the chapel.
Yeah, that could have been a little bit of it, but
Could have been. I was like,
whatever.
oh, I'm gonna throw up. We need to move on.
Oh no.
Solitary, totally fine. The chapel, not so great.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did an investigation with a friend in a cemetery in Savannah about a year ago, maybe, and he picked up a little, like mausoleum house
Mhm.
thing that he wanted to, try to clear or whatever he was doing, and and all I could hear was somebody yelling at us, going, "Blasphemers! This is blasphemy! Blasphemy! Get away from me!" And
Oh
I'm
my
like
gosh.
standing there going, are you done yet? Because I'm
Right.
really done. I'm done. I'm tired of getting screamed at here. And I think we should probably move on to a different, maybe even a different cemetery. How about that?
Right. I think I'm getting the vibe that maybe they're not liking us.
Yeah, this guy was not happy.
Wow.
And and I was, yeah, I could hear that. And the funniest part, and his name is Thomas Sawyer, great psychic himself, very talented. And he's based in Atlanta now, but he was living in Savannah. And as we were leaving the cemetery, I felt this huge whooshing above
Mm.
me, and I went, "Whoa, wow!" I said, "There's some real energy going on up here." And he goes, "I brought in a dragon. Fire purifies."
Sure.
Okay,
As one does.
Yeah, right.
yes,
Right. Pet
good
dragon.
idea. I'm glad you thought of it. He was
That's
he was
awesome.
surprised that I could feel it though. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh," I said, "Yeah." I said, "What is this?"
Surprised you feel a
So
dragon, huh?
Right.
big dragon, very big,
Yeah, the
very big.
dragon in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. That's amazing. So now you and I have chatted a little bit, but I want to kind of you were a rock journalist, and I know you traveled with ACDC, correct?
Well, I didn't
Or
travel with them, but
Mhm.
was I met the band on their first American tour,
Yeah.
and I became friends with one of the roadies, Barry Taylor.
Mhm.
And at the time, he took my name and number and my address, and we literally became pen pals, if you will. He called and wrote me every week for the next 3 years.
Wow.
And every time ACDC was anywhere, Rockford,
Mhm.
Chicago, Madison, Milwaukee, I was always at all of those shows.
Nice.
And I'm still friendly with them today. I mean, that ended up, Barry actually left the band right before Bon Scott died.
Mm.
And the next time I saw the band was on the Back in Black tour after Brian Johnson had joined. And I've kind of had a friendly relationship with them
Yeah.
for many years now.
It's amazing.
46 this summer.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I just, it's a lot of years to admit to, but
Hey,
yeah, I was
a
there.
lot of fun years, I'm sure, though.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew the night that I saw them that I
Mhm.
was seeing a phenomena. I
Yeah.
really, because I was a huge fan of, here in Madison at the Dane County Coliseum back when I was in high school. I saw everybody. I saw Cream, Black Sabbath, Deep
Mm.
Purple, just everybody. And I just, when I saw ACDC that night in this little club, there's like 75 people there. The tickets were $3 to get in.
Wow.
And when I saw them play live in front of me, like 30 feet in front of me, that was it.
Amazing.
I had never heard anything like that before. And we have a long running joke that night when I talked to the band after. Everybody in the club wanted to meet the band
Yeah.
afterwards, so they had the whole line of people, and they were so funny. I mean, broke. They were broke.
Yeah.
They had no money, and nobody knew them. Their album "Let There Be Rock" had been released in the United States, but the radio didn't play it. So I'd never heard of them. I didn't know who they were, what they sounded like, or anything. And so after I saw them that night, I was talking to them in the dressing room after the show, and I said, after everybody left, I waited and had to have some time to talk. And I told them right out, and I don't know why I said this band in particular, but I said, you guys are going to be internationally famous. I said, it'll be a couple years. It's going to take a little while. But I said, someday you're going to be as big as the Rolling Stones. And they just died laughing at that. They
awesome.
laughed. Yeah, they laughed so hard. Angus was sitting in a little couch in front of me, and he pulled his shoe off and stuck his foot up in my face. And he says, "Oh, does that mean I can buy me some new socks?" Yeah. Mr. Embroidered on underwear now, yeah. So that but that has been a long running joke now. So every time I see them, I always say, at the end of our visit, I'll always say, "Now, can I say you're as big as the Rolling Stones?" And the last time I said this, Angus says, "Nope, Mick and Keith will always be taller than us."
True.
So, yeah. So they won't take the compliment, but it's become like a joke. And it's funny. This was years ago, that I said this, and I've had people say, 2 to 3 years, Bon Scott's gone, Back in Black comes out, they're huge. What is she, a psychic? Yeah.
You're
I
like
guess I
the
was.
dragon. The dragon.
Yeah, I could pick up dragons. So, but back then I wasn't actively into that.
Yeah.
And that's just what I said. I just told them right out. And I didn't know that they idolized the Rolling Stones. I didn't know their background at all. And I said, someday you're going to be as big as the Rolling Stones. So
amazing. Oh, you were right.
Yep. 50 years later,
cool.
still doing it.
Yeah.
Was Angus doing the when you first saw them? What was he doing? The schoolboy thing and the striptease yet, or
everything? It was so funny because they had a 1-page biography, a little bio, and it said they had gone to the United Kingdom before the U.S. So it said that they had started brawls from one end of England to the other. And then they talked about Angus being this little stick of dynamite.
Right.
Well, Angus didn't have a whole lot to say because I hung out with them for a couple hours before they played. Yeah. And Angus sat on the couch tuning his guitars and, sipping his tea and not really talking to anybody. And I kept looking at him thinking, stick of dynamite, really? Come on now, because everybody else was chatty. Malcolm was chatty. Bon was, making fun of things and making me laugh and all of that. But when they came out on stage, the first time Angus fell down, I thought he tripped on something.
Right.
I did. I was like, oh, and then when he did it again, I thought, well, that's strange. And then, then it spinning around on his back and, doing all this stuff. And I call it love at first scream.
Right.
They lit into live wire, and the rhythm section starts that out. And then, Angus comes in and the spotlight comes on. Bon's standing there, tight jeans, no shirt, starts the first line of live wire. And that was it for me. I mean, the hair on my arms stood straight up.
Yeah.
And I just electrified. I was electrified by them. And I've been a crazy fan ever since. So,
yeah. Those guys have that effect, that's for sure. I love those guys. Did your parents did they book the national acts and stuff like that, the ballroom they owned, or
just during the ballroom years?
Okay.
And that was in the 50s. So, they had like Louis Armstrong and people like that played there.
Amazing. That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, the claim to fame that I have is, and a lot of people don't know who Gene Krupa was.
Yeah.
But Gene Krupa really revolutionized rock drumming.
Mhm.
Every I always I always have to pull this on every famous drummer I ever meet. I have to tell him the story to see what he thinks, and anyone that doesn't know, if you're in that position, you don't know who Gene Krupa is, and I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you. I'm sorry.
Right.
Go talk to the bass player now. But they used to put me in the ballroom to play because you had Main Street and the river.
Mhm.
I mean, they could have taught me how to swim early, but they didn't. Uh, but they would put me in the ballroom.
Mhm.
So I was a little kid, and I was on stage. I would go on stage, and I would like play with the instruments. I would mess around with whatever I could get my hands on, and I don't remember this. I really wish I did, but I don't. My mom used to tell us all the time, though, that Gene Krupa was playing there. Yeah, I think a couple nights he played, and one night he comes walking into the kitchen with my doll in his hand. And he said, I bet somebody's looking for this. And my mom took him into we had a little apartment on the ground floor right off the kitchen. And he gave me my doll and he tucked me in.
Aw.
That's
So
cool.
I was tucked in by Gene Krupa. That is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah. If you ever get the chance, get the movie, The Gene Krupa Story.
Mhm.
Where the actor from Rebel Without a Cause, Sal
Mhm.
Mineo,
Mhm.
plays him,
Hmm.
and he plays along to Gene's drumming.
Mhm.
I don't know how he does it. I honestly don't know how he physically was able to replicate how Gene
Yeah.
Krupa played,
Wow.
because Gene was like all over the place.
Yeah.
He played a lot of the floor toms. That was his thing, and
Mhm.
like this, all the stuff that the rock drummers do now,
Mhm.
that came from Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Do you ever feel like you sort of connect or hear anything from like Malcolm or Bon or anything like that?
oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody just posted blueprint for drummers, Gene
Yeah.
Krupa.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
Paul.
Hi, Paul, by the way.
We
I
got a lot of
love that.
musicians who
Yeah.
are in
Appreciate
our
that.
audience.
Yes. Well, yes, I do. Bon actually recently showed up. I was visiting my sister in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, and Bon shows up very vividly, and the whole dream is him, and we
Mhm.
have a lot to talk about. I
Yeah.
Mhm.
never remember what we talked about the next day, but it's always something that comes up for me in the future.
Hmm.
He did that before I got the contract to write the book Let There Be Rock.
Wow.
He showed up
Okay.
at my house in my dream,
Hmm.
and we spent the whole night talking. And again, couldn't remember what he had told me.
Mhm.
But then just a couple of months later, I get discovered by Music Sales Group, and they're looking for somebody to write a biography of AC/DC, and
Hmm.
it all fell into place. Malcolm, I've also seen since he's passed.
Mhm.
He's comes by to say hello once in a while.
Aw.
Bon is always has more information for
Hmm.
me.
Okay.
I like to think that Bon. I think Malcolm looks over me too, but I think Bon
Mhm.
is definitely kind of a guardian angel for me,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
he just, they it's amazing. I mean, I met them. I'm a reporter. I'm a writer. I didn't have any romantic relationship with any of them, and
Mhm.
which I think helped me in
Yeah.
the long run. And they've always treated me like a little sister. Him,
Aw.
Malcolm, and
That's
Angus.
cool.
We pick on each other.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know. And so but yeah, Malcolm. I saw Malcolm maybe a couple months ago, but I can't remember the
Mm.
details of it. But Bond just recently, though, he just showed up.
Okay.
So I'm kind of looking forward to what this means, because it's always something. But
Yeah.
I won't know. Yeah,
It
I
sounds
won't
like
know for
Bond's
a while.
maybe like orchestrating behind the scenes for you.
Oh yeah,
Could
no, he
be.
always does. He
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
does.
That's awesome. Amazing. And you did you meet the guys from Van Halen as well? I know you have, I think, written about them as well, correct?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Me and Van Halen. Oh my God. I still get interviewed about that too, because let's see, working at a local paper. I'm in love with AC/DC,
Yeah.
so that's all I can think about. But we get this about February of 1978. We get this red vinyl album in the mail at the paper that I was working for,
Yeah.
and it had 4 songs on it. It was a band out of California, a couple of brothers called Van Halen.
Yeah.
What's this? We put it on the turntable. It went to, I think the first track might have been Eruption.
Mm.
And I mean, talk about, half your brain being blown out of your head.
Right.
I mean, we just stood there in shock, like really shock, like what and who is this?
Yeah.
And so they went on tour with Montrose and Journey, and they're going to play Madison. So we're, over the moon about this. And they were to play the Orpheum Theater downtown. And the Orpheum Theater decided they didn't want 3 bands on the stage that night. They bumped Van Halen off. They gave them the night off. When we got that news, my editor, Michael St. John, I dealt with the record companies. That was my job, to get, the tickets, backstage passes, set up the interviews. So I talked to the record companies. And right away, Michael says to me, he goes, call Warner Brothers and see if you can get them booked into a club.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I call Warner Brothers and I give them this sob story, of saying, they're going to be in town. They're here. They're in Madison. Okay. They cannot sit in their hotel room. They have to play. They have to. And she was like, oh, they love to play. They love to play. And I said, okay. I'm going to give you phone numbers of 2 clubs. One was a Shuffle In, one was Headliners, 2 big rock clubs here in Madison. And I said, let me know. And about 3 hours later, she called me back and she said, well, we booked them into the Shuffle. I hope that works. And I mean, oh my God, you could have heard my scream, all the way to California, because we were, we were just so excited. And our paper came out every other Tuesday. So they played on Tuesday, March 7th, 1978. So we did not, of course, the grapevine, people knew, but it was not announced until that day in the paper. And that night, now this club probably had maybe 500 to 600 capacity. I might be a little off on that. I'm not great at that, but there had to have been 1,000 people there.
Wow.
It was insane, because it really got me, was on the radio, so people had heard them, knew, what this was. And once they came on stage that night, you couldn't move. I mean, literally, it was, you couldn't go to the bathroom. You couldn't get a drink wherever you were. That's it. And I got to hang out with them before the show, and we took pictures. Now, our photographer for the paper, Tom Giles, he would always get me into the picture at the end. He would take pictures for the cover of the paper. And then he'd always say, jump in. Well, these guys were a little intimidating, to say the least. A little bit over the top. Not Eddie. Eddie was very quiet and shy, and Michael was super sweet and quiet. David was Dave. And then Alex was crazy, basically. So he was kind of a Keith Moon kind of a character at the time, anyway. So I was a little bit standoffish, and I didn't want a picture. I said, no, that's okay. And they're like, oh, we're not good enough for you. Okay. Well, that's okay, I don't mind. They're putting on. And so I walked up to them and I said, all right, fine, I'll take a picture, but don't. And all 4 of them, I said, don't one of you touch me. And I turn around, like, take the picture. Now, David, I could feel him just touching my elbow, just ever so slightly. Of
course. Yeah.
Michael was behaving himself. Alex put his head down by mine so I could hear, or I could feel his hair on my neck. And then, that was Alex. And then Eddie bent down And I thought, well, trying to get into the picture. Well, my photographer, Tom, is giggling and the band's giggling. And I'm thinking, what's so funny? Snaps the shot. Next day, well, that night, I went to the party afterwards, but jumping to the next day, Tom came in with prints. He turned around and he handed me a 5x7 and said, "You want to know why everybody was laughing?" And I said, "Yeah." And I grabbed the picture, and here Eddie looks like he's got his hands around the top of my thigh. And I mean, way up at the top of my thigh. And the thing about it is I had it was the 70s. I had these wide dress pants on. And I didn't, honestly, this is the truth, if I would have felt his hands there, he would have got punched and the picture would have been over. Okay. There would have been no picture. I would have punched him. I totally would have. And so, now I have this picture that is iconic after all these years, because those hands, I mean, those amazing hands.
Right.
And, oh my God. So, but that night I went back to the Sheridan, and they had stayed at the Sheridan for 3 nights. They had been there the night before, the night I was there, and then the night after, which actually I had to go cover a band at the Playboy Club in Chicago the 3rd night. And then I hooked up with them again in Milwaukee on the 4th night when they played the Riverside. But I was there the 2nd night, and Alex just decided that I was his and nobody was getting near me, which is, fine for, it was cool, but I had a huge crush on Eddie. Not going to lie. David was beautiful and he knew it. And, but Eddie was, for me, I'm like, no, I would love that, but Alex wasn't having it. So, so Alex, we were waiting for the roadies to come back to the hotel with beer from the club. So Alex says to me, and we're in this party, there's lots of girls and lots of people talking, and Eddie is in his room by himself. He wasn't in the party with us. And we tried to go get him to come join us, but he wouldn't. Very quiet, very, very shy, very sweet though. Very sweet. Well, I thought he was sweet till I saw that picture. And then
He's still a rock star.
I was like, wow, I'm like, really? But so Alex grabs me by the arm, and he's like, "Come on, let's go see if the roadies are here yet." So we take off, we go down the hall, we get in the elevator, and as we're going down, he's hitting the alarm button on every floor. So he's setting the alarm off on every floor, which was like troublesome at that time, because I'm in the elevator alone with him. Okay. So then he stops the elevator and he says, "Hold the door open. I got a trick. I got to show you this." And I'm thinking, oh, geez, probably not a good idea that I agreed to go into an elevator alone with Alex Van Halen. So I'm holding the door open. He jumps out, puts his head back in, and lines him up with the door. And he says, "Oh, let the doors close." And I'm like, I'm holding the button. I'm like, I'm not doing that. What are you, insane? And he goes, "Let the doors close." And I said, "Not letting the door close." He goes, "Let the door close. You're not going anywhere." And I'm getting these headlines flashing, rock journalist kills Van Halen drummer, in freak elevator accident, and he made me so angry that I let the doors close.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Fine, you want to crush your head? Go ahead." So the doors hit his head and bounced back open. He thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever done in a million years, right? He was having a great time. So then, and he liked to pick me up a lot. He picked me up, around the waist and threw me out into the hallway, held the button, and he says, "Now you're going to do it." And I said, "I'm not doing that." He goes, "Yeah, you are." And I said, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Yeah, you're not going anywhere until you do it." And I'm looking up and down the hallway thinking, can I outrun him?
Right.
No, no, I can't. So I put my head between the doors and I let the doors shut on my head. Now, do not do this. Do not try to do this. This can be a fatal accident for you.
Oh my
okay?
gosh.
don't do this. But I did. And it didn't hurt so much, but the sound in your head sounds like your head's being crushed. It's
Oh,
just this, you know. And so I let him do it. And the doors flew open, and he laughed so hard that he slid down to the ground, and tears started coming out of his eyes. And I said, "What?" I said, "What is so funny?" He goes, "I've been trying to get the band to do this. I've been trying to get all the crew." He says,
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he goes, "You're the first person that has ever done this." He goes, "The band is going to freak." And I think after this, I think they literally were a little afraid of me, because it was like, she's just as crazy as Alex. So, be careful around her. You don't know what she's going to do.
yeah.
So years later, 2003, I get a guy that gets a hold of me and says, we're doing a video. Now, this is 2003. We're doing a DVD on the early years of Van Halen, and we love the elevator story because I had written about it, and we want to fly you out to LA and have you, in the DVD. Now, I thought I didn't take it seriously at all. I thought, this is a serial killer in LA that wants to kill me on camera in his living room. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I gave him a hard time about it, but he talked me into it. He paid for me to come out. And so I ended up in that. And then that's 2003, jumped to 2021. And I get flown. I was in Savannah at the time. I get flown up to Madison to film frontman David Lee Roth for the Reels channel up in the Roth room in the Sheraton Hotel on the 7th floor. So if you're ever in Madison, you want to check out the conference room that they took some of the rooms that the guys had stayed in and made it into a conference room, and it's all memorabilia of their time there. And they were banned, actually. they trashed the hotel so badly in 3 days that they were banned from Sheraton's for the rest of their lives, basically.
Oh my gosh.
And on their second album, on the back, in the dedications, they dedicate the 7th floor of the Sheraton Hotel in Madison, Wisconsin. So they threw furniture out the windows. They did all kinds of things to each other. And, it was fun, but I was only there for one of the nights, and thank God. I don't know if my head could have taken a second. Probably.
I love it. That's what got Alex all fired up with the elevator trick. He was absolutely beyond excited.
So funny.
And I'm like, no, you're telling me nobody else has done this?
Right. That's funny.
Oh, I was so mad. I was just so mad at him because I'm thinking, why? Why did I do such a thing? But again, I'm in the history books now.
There you go.
It explains so much mentally, though, smashing your head in an elevator door. Don't do it. Don't do it. No. I always tell people that. Do not do that trick. That's not a funny trick. That could be a very bad thing.
I don't want to put my head between.
No, I get.
It can get squashed. I'll say that.
When the doors close, you can put your arm in there. I'm even worried of doing that, of getting my arm caught.
There's safety mechanisms, but why chance it?
I know. So I'm even leery about it now. I'm like, don't do that. So that was. I had a few experiences with Van Halen, and all fun. They're amazing. My favorite part, I'll tell you real quick, not that you need to know, but I did write about it. There was one bathroom in the dressing room at the Shuffle in the basement, and as they were getting ready to go on stage, they all took turns using the bathroom. Well, I'm just hanging out. I'm just the only girl, hanging out with the guys. And that was kind of my thing, that I could just kind of blend in with everybody. And I think that David could sense that I wasn't all crazy about him. I mean, I liked him a lot. Yeah. He's very, very smart guy. I mean, oh my God, we've had long conversations. He can talk about anything, but I think that he knew that I wasn't like, I want to get my hands on him kind of thing. Yeah. So he changed into his leather pants in front of me. instead of using the bathroom.
Right.
Oh.
And he didn't ask me to turn around, and I didn't offer.
Right.
Good for you.
I
As
know.
you should.
Yes, yes. So I got up close and personal with David right there, then and there, and yeah, I was good with it. It didn't bother
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
It didn't bother him at all, apparently.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
knowing the way he was, he probably thought it would freak me out.
Yeah.
And no.
I would have
I
been
I
like,
imagine, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was, I was enjoying the scenery while I could.
yep.
Yeah. But
It's hilarious. Well, in my mind, I'd be like, well, if you're going to do this, I'm going to give it to you right back. So.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was, I was happy. I had a smile on my face. I was like, ooh, yeah,
Yep.
okay. I like it. It didn't
Thank
involve
you.
underwear. I know that. So
I don't think you could hide them in those things he used to
Yeah.
wear. I mean, he used
not
to wear
those
ass and chaps.
tight leather pants. No,
Yeah.
no, he didn't have anything in between him and his Calvins. There was nothing,
Yeah.
nothing there. So I think he liked me better after that.
Probably
really do.
did.
Yeah, because I was totally, well, you didn't know I grew up in a bar.
Oh.
I mean, you grow up in a bar, you see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was,
That's true.
yeah, and I'd already been hanging out with AC/DC, so
Right.
Right.
I
You were well
already-
prepped for that moment.
I know. I was already dealing with Bon Scott. I mean, come on, little David. Sure, why not?
Well,
Yeah.
Dave, yeah. Yeah, Bond was a character too, that's for sure.
Oh my God, he was. Yeah.
That show that they bumped VH from Montrose was there, you said? Was Sammy with him then?
Don't think so. I
Okay.
really don't think he was. I would have to look back on that, but I don't think he was. I don't remember him being in the band.
Okay.
But then I didn't see them when they played in Madison. I saw them 2 nights later in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And it was Van Halen, Montrose, and Journey was the headliner. So, and that was a great night. That night, I met Leslie West from Mountain,
Mhm.
Mississippi Queen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He was living. He's from New York, but he was living with his manager in Milwaukee, recovering from a heroin addiction. And he came out. I didn't know who he was. My editor Michael was there, and he goes, "Oh my God, that's Leslie West," And I said, "Mississippi Queen, Leslie West," and he's like,
Mhm.
"Right there," So I went up and I introduced myself, and believe it or not, he goes, "Ah, I love your articles. I read the paper every 2
Aw.
weeks. Charlie brings them home." And he asked me for my number, and he says, while I'm here in the Midwest, I'd really like to, keep up on the local scene and stuff. So can I call you? And we ended up being buddies. We were
That's awesome.
friends for many, many years after that. So Leslie was a super cool guy, and what a guitar player that he was.
Yeah, another
Goodness.
icon influence, for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah, so I was very lucky because at the time that I was with the paper, you had TV, radio, and paper. That was it. There was no internet, no MTV, none of that. So paper was pretty powerful.
Mhm.
So at the time,
Mhm.
with all the shows that were coming through, we got everything. We got interviews, we got photo shoots, whatever we wanted, really. And we actually ended up being the first magazine / paper that put Van Halen on the cover in the United States.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
that's cool.
Yep. Warner
That's
Brothers was
incredible.
really happy with us. Yeah.
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 Needless to say, anybody that saw Van Halen, you're going to put them on the cover.
Right.
But we were there in the beginning, so we were lucky.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
I had so many experiences. Hung out with Ted
Mhm.
Nugent, Keith Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Cheap Trick. Used to work for them for a while. I worked for
Oh,
their,
wow.
ran their fan club for them.
That's
Right
cool.
when Live at Budokan took off.
Yeah.
Their manager Ken Adamany lives here in Madison, so I worked for them for a while. And it was just, it was an amazing time to be part of the music business.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot of innovation too. Like you're right at the heart of all that stuff. Because I mean, those are classic times, classic moments, classic albums.
Everything.
Obviously, VH1 and all that, VH2. All that stuff. It's just.
Yeah, it was, and we knew, even though I was 21 when I started, I was an absolute kid off the street, had no idea what I was doing, just winging it, but we knew that we were seeing history.
Yeah,
we used to talk about that.
I always wondered that because I didn't even hear VH1 until like 1985 or something like that. You know what I mean? And for me it was always like, what was this like when it broke? Like when you heard Eruption and you really got me on the the radio or whatever. So I'm always
mind blowing.
Yeah, I heard. I mean, the first thing I ever heard from VH was Sammy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that actually made one of the things that made me want to play guitar. And and I didn't get VH1 until later, and it was like, this is just the greatest thing ever. I mean, because Eruption sounds like, you take your pick, either God or Satan's playing guitar, either one, it doesn't matter. that guitar tone is just.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Still.
And sorry. He used to have a on stage, you can probably see this in videos, but when I first saw them, he had a bomb, like a actual bomb.
Casing.
It was not, you couldn't detonate it, thank God, because Alex was around. You never know. So, but yeah, he had all his gear in this bomb up on stage, and then Alex had the double bass drums welded together, so he had 4 bass drums. So and just the way they played, I mean, all of them were exceptional performers. Aside from Eddie being like an alien. I mean, really, he was. Who is this? What is this that he's doing here? And so it was just to see it live. I saw them in a bar like a couple times before I started seeing them. I remember when they got on tour with Black Sabbath, then I saw them playing the bigger arenas and that sort of thing. But to be able to see those guys, especially with AC/DC, how many times I got to see them in a bar. Unbelievable. Having standing 6 feet in front of Bon and him winking at my girlfriends and being Bon, it was really a wonderful time.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When you saw them in the clubs, were you kind of like off stage, or were you out front?
Right out front.
Right out front.
Like, right in front of them. Yeah. Yeah, the first time I saw them, they were literally like 30 feet in front of me.
Okay.
It wasn't that big of a club.
I'm always curious. I'm always curious because my question is, like, I would love to go back and hear Ed's amp, like the amp, the Marshall Plexi, the famous Marshall Plexi, like actually in person. You know what I mean? And I always wondered, did you get stage volume? What were you hearing in the room at the time?
Oh, I mean, they sounded like the album, they were so spot on, and their sound was otherworldly, if you will. And it was just, David, doing his jumps, and, Eddie, and I think, personally, I think Alex Van Halen is one of the most underrated drummers in rock. He is amazing, just as amazing as his brother in a lot of ways, really.
Yeah.
So to see that level, of musicianship alone was stunning. It was, aside from the fact that, they were so fun. They were just, they knew, I said this in the video I did in 2003. They were like, yeah, we're going to be world famous in about 15 minutes. They had that. They knew it. They knew it. I mean, AC/DC knew it too, but not in that kind of a way, I guess.
VH had that "we're going to conquer the world" kind of tude.
Yeah, well, they knew they could.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't be able to? The way that they sounded,
Sounded
and you know,
and
they had the goods, as they say. You know, they knew they had the goods, and so it was kind of cute that they were, you know, they and you know, like I don't know, it just, there's a lot of overblown stories about Van Halen, you know, like the brown M&M thing, and you know, that sort of thing. But you know, they like to trash places. It was something that they did something at the Sheridan that I don't know if I can get this right, but okay, David gets into Eddie's room and takes all the furniture out of it and leaves.
That's already funny.
I don't know how this worked out, but so Eddie comes back. Let's see, he had like, one of them had screens but no furniture. And then the other room had no furniture but screens in the windows. And so when Eddie discovered that his room was missing all of his furniture, he went back downstairs and pretended he was David and said, "I need a key to David, my room." And so then Eddie went back up and did the same thing back to David. So, you know, I also know that they had so many, the police were called so many times to the Sheridan that they had a patrol car in the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they took like, and they did this throughout their tours. Like, they called it fishing. They would take frozen fish and they would duct tape it along the ceiling. They did in the Sheridan, along the ceiling of the hallway, and then it melts and drips on people. So,
that's just gross.
Yeah, they enjoyed a lot of things like that were just, you know, the funniest thing, the first night, Alex told me that, you know, they had all these girls, you know, of course, women everywhere, and they were in one of their rooms, and the police, you know, kept getting called. So finally, Alex, you know, herds everyone into one room, tells everybody, you know, silence, don't make a noise. And he takes Eddie and throws him out in the hallway and locks him out. So the cops come. And they're banging on Alex's door, and Alex is acting like he's asleep. He's not answering the door. And there's no, you know, there's no noise, there's nothing. And Eddie's out there trying to explain why the police were called. Like, I don't know. I mean, you know, well, where are all these people? You know, they're being silent. So I guess even the next day, Eddie was still so pissed at Alex for that. He was not happy at all. It was funny. Yeah. Alex was, I love all of them, but Alex and I definitely, we had a certain thing.
Yeah.
I say we were soulmates in a lot of ways because, you know, I think I'm probably the only person that ever did do that elevator trick.
I was going to say the elevator doors brought you together.
One is hard. Yeah.
Yeah. A bond that has lasted forever. So,
funny.
Who knew?
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, you know, it was funny. I guess I was lucky in a way, because I was a tomboy. You know, I grew up in a bar. I was a tomboy. I like to hang out with the boys. They're more fun. I'm sorry, ladies, but I like hanging out with guys because they're just more fun. They're guys, okay?
Especially those guys.
Yeah, especially guys like that. So I was just lucky enough to, you know, how to, you know, hang and not be like they would talk in front of me and say inappropriate things in front of me because they knew that, you know, I was fine. I didn't, I wasn't all like, oh, you know, I was a little bit with the picture taking with Van Halen. Cause I figured I knew psychically, I knew somebody was going to touch me inappropriately.
Well, I mean, if it had to be someone, Eddie's not bad. I'm just saying.
Well, no, and I have an autograph because 2 weeks later the paper came out, and we went down to Schaumburg, Illinois to Beginnings, and they played the Loop. It was a birthday party for the radio station, and so I got to see him in a club again, and we took the papers down there, and so I have one that's autographed by the whole band, and Eddie's autograph says, "To Sue, I love your thighs." Eddie. And he's got about 10 exclamation
Oh my
points.
gosh. That's so funny.
I'm like, even Valerie Bertinelli doesn't have a picture like that. So
that's true.
that is
It was
true.
funny. I saw a clip just today. Actually, my buddy sent it to me. An old screenshot of her on One Day at a Time. That
Yeah, I think that's what she was on.
And she's got a VH necklace.
Aww.
The same one
yeah.
Ed used to wear.
So cute.
No, that's personal to me because I gave their manager the idea of a necklace.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Noah Monk was their manager.
Yeah.
And I at the Riverside that night, I was there early and we sat and talked, and he was talking about the next single. And he said he was asking everybody, it wasn't just me. But he said, "What do you think the next single should be?" And I said, "Running with the Devil." Gotta be, And he says, "Yeah, that's what everybody says." And I said, "And by the way, their logo would be like hood ornament on a car, or a necklace, or any of that would be perfect." And then, of course, I never got a necklace, and then I see Valerie wearing one on TV one night, and I was that was my idea. So you could at least mail me one, okay? Right? They still owe me a necklace. So
yeah.
Anybody out there that's listening, you still owe me a necklace. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's
awesome.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Telling you, one of the most interesting lives.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Been, it continues. I mean, it just never seems to end.
Do you ever hear from Ed at all?
Actually, funny you should mention that, because getting back into the paranormal. Okay. October of 2020, I go back to the Sheridan, and I had a book signing for the FAQ book. So I believe it was the FAQ book. I'm pretty sure it was the ACDC FAQ book. So I booked a book signing, and the Sheridan wanted to unveil the Roth room. Now, it's funny. When they took me upstairs, and I gave them a lot of memorabilia for the room. So they wanted me to see it before anyone else saw it. And they took me up there, and I saw, the plaque, the Roth room. And they opened the door, and as soon as I walk in, I look around and I go, "Wow, Eddie and Alex is going to hate this." Yeah, the Roth room, but they couldn't get legal clearance to call it the Van Halen room. So that's why. So they gave me I had 3 of my girlfriends. We were going to do my book signing, and we're going to stay 2 nights, celebrate my birthday. It's on the 3rd of October. So we're staying in a room, and I have one girlfriend with me. The 2 psychic girlfriends are across the hall, and we had so much fun, but we kept hearing things in our room during while we were earlier in the evening, and I kept calling him Eddie because I was thinking of Eddie Money. Because I knew Eddie Money too. I partied with Eddie Money's band at the Sheridan. And so and Eddie had passed. So I kept calling him Eddie. And I kept saying, "Eddie, enough. All right, we know you're here, okay?" And it just, it was just like a thing. And so the first night, I do the book signing, and I'm terrified. It's the pandemic. So, we're wearing masks, and it was very careful. We were very cautious. Okay. Yeah. But I felt guilty because I thought, what if somebody gets sick from this? I just really, really worried about that. I'm laying in bed. My girlfriend's asleep, and I cannot sleep. I'm thinking, oh my God, if somebody gets sick, I'll never forgive myself. Just going. And all of a sudden, somebody came up to me in my ear, my left ear, and went, just really audible, where I could feel it on my skin. Wow. I was so tired and convinced it was Eddie Money that I said, "Great. Either go away or climb in bed and help me go to sleep." Right. And I just passed out. That was the end of that. So the next night, we're doing our thing. We had a nice dinner. We partied for, a long time that night. But as we're getting ready for bed, somebody's in the bathroom. I mean, you can hear all these things going on, this clicking, this bumping, this, and I said again, I said, Eddie, I said, would enough, okay? I said, we hear you. We know you're here. Give it up, okay? I was getting tired of it. So I'm in bed. It's in the dark. My girlfriend is asleep. And honest to God, you don't ever want this to happen. I am laying there, and she lets out a blood-curdling scream. And I mean, I'm thinking, there's somebody in our room. She's being murdered. I'm next. So, I freeze. And the next thing I know, she bursts out laughing and sits up. And I said, what? This in the dark. I said, what is going on with you? And she's laughing, and she goes, oh my God. She goes, this guy, there's a guy. I said, Eddie, right? She goes, yeah, this guy, he came up and stuck his face into my face and scared the hell out of me.
Oh my God.
And she woke up screaming. So again, Eddie Money, that's who it was. We check out on the 4th, the day after my birthday. As I'm driving out of the parking lot, Jump comes on the radio, which was, a great, thanks for the great 2 nights we had and everything. And then 2 days later, Eddie Van Halen dies. And I now believe that it was Eddie that was messing with us. Because, a lot of times before you pass, you make your rounds, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
And if he knew that there was a room called the Roth Room, at the Sheridan, like I said, he's gonna hate this.
That's so funny.
So yeah, I kind of think that was Eddie that was messing with us. And I've never, you don't want to be in a dark hotel room and hear your roommate scream like she did.
No.
It was pure terror. And then she bursts out laughing. That's what the weirdest thing, and I just thought, okay, and she goes, oh my God, this guy, he shoved his face into my face. And I'm like, gee, so after he passed 2 days later, then I realized, I was like, yeah, it was probably Eddie, messing with us.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to think so anyway.
Yeah.
But so sad that he died so young.
Ugh.
I know.
My buddies and I, we still talk about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, him and Malcolm too. Malcolm Young.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Another, another icon.
Such geniuses, pure genius, and lost both of them, way too early.
So, oh yeah. Yeah. It's, even if they weren't touring or putting out albums, just one of those things. It's like, it's nice just knowing they're there, and now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I just, the legacy that they both, have left us is just so enormous, that it's kind of hard to put it into words, really, It
is. It's incalculable because
it is. Yeah.
So much influence. So many musicians have been influenced by both those guys.
Oh God, yeah.
And both bands, and it's, and then how many people have heard the music, heard the albums, how many people go out and see other people who are influenced by those guys, it's just endless.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It never ends. And, I didn't get to know Eddie like I got to know Malcolm, and Malcolm was such an amazing person, just so smart, so witty, chatty. People don't think of him that way. But
I was going to say that actually surprises me because he's normally, we're just watching AC/DC. Of course, it's Angus up front, and he's back there by the drum kit, the whole time, and just holding down the fort, really. But
you think so, but he's running the whole thing. That's what I loved about Malcolm from the very beginning, is that I knew he was the boss. I knew that he made all the decisions.
Yeah.
And he didn't come off that way. People didn't realize that.
Right.
And I just, I admired him so much for what he did, but just what a gentleman he was. And, he said in an interview one time that kind of an iconic line now from him somebody asked him once, how do you feel about, your little brother being the focal point of the band and, the star of the band, and he's, he's out there, and, and you're back there. And Malcolm just says, if you got paid more than me, it'd bother me.
That's great.
So Malcolm, it's like cut and dried business, it's, his favorite thing too is he always said, if you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah.
And that was his attitude. That was his complete attitude of like, if you don't, because they were called, punk back when they started. They hated that. Oh my God, they hated that.
Well,
and
I remember it's something, an interview with Angus, and somebody had asked him how the schoolboy thing came about or whatever. And I'm messing up the story. I'm getting it wrong, but basically he had the outfit on, and they're playing this club, this bar or whatever, kind of a rougher place or something like that. And he's like, all I could think of to do is just go nuts. And that kept me from getting my ass kicked, basically, you know what I mean? Or whatever. They put it in his way. That's where the Angus came from, that never stood still, you know what I mean? Because and everybody, of course, loved it.
They threw beer cans at him.
Yeah.
That's why. I mean, back in the early days when they toured Australia, there was some tough crowds,
right?
And they would throw things at him. Wow. So Angus figured, if he kept moving, they could hit him. That's what he said. One of my favorite stories about that, I don't know the date or time, but somebody was heckling Angus, and Angus had had enough. And he threw his guitar down and he jumped into the crowd, lunged at this guy. Well, Angus is about, 5'2".
Right.
Yeah. He's not really going to take down somebody in the audience. You wouldn't think anyway. He didn't have a weapon with him. And so Phil Rudd jumps off of the drum kit, jumps down into the crowd, knocks the guy out, and breaks his left thumb doing it.
Oh no.
Wow.
So that's why he got the nickname Left Hook Rug.
Okay.
Because, and they asked him later on, like, what were you thinking? Why did you do that? He goes, it was Angus. I had to.
Right.
He had to save him. Somebody had to save him.
Right.
So I love Phil for that because, he was right off, but he broke his thumb. He had to miss a couple dates because of that. So.
Oh, no.
And those guys go to take over the world, you know what I mean? And that's because they're pure rock, you know what I mean? They're just,
yes, rock and roll, that's like you said, the FAQ, everything to know about the world's true rock and roll band. And that's what, Malcolm would always say, is that we are a rock and roll band.
Yep.
We're not punk, we're not new wave, we're not this, we're not that. We're rock and roll.
And
oh God, I mean, that was the whole debacle of the recording of Highway to Hell. They 6 people lost their jobs over that.
Oh wow.
That was, the record company did not want to do an album called Highway to Hell, for one thing. I don't know why, but they didn't. And so let's see, they got 2 guys from Atlantic Records, hooked them up with Eddie Kramer. And they went to Miami to record Highway to Hell. Now, Eddie Kramer is a great, nothing taking away from his talent as a producer,
right?
But he wanted them to add keyboards. I'm surprised he didn't get hurt. I'm telling you. But what they did was they were so frustrated. It wasn't going anywhere. They were just this tug and pull thing going on. And so they give Eddie the day off. They tell him we're going to take a day off.
Right.
Angus and Malcolm and Bon go into the studio. Bon used to be a drummer. So Bon gets on the drums. They do a little demo tape of a couple of songs that are going to go on Highway to Hell. Call their manager, Michael Browning, at the time, who just happened to be hanging out with Mutt Lange. And they said, the producer's done. We're not recording here. We want out of Miami. Find us somebody, but this isn't happening. So the 2 guys at Atlantic Records got fired. Eddie Kramer got fired. Michael Browning unfortunately lost his job, and Harry Vanda and George Young had been pushed out for a new producer. So 6 people ended up losing their jobs over Highway to Hell.
Wow.
And that's what, with Mutt Lange's production
Right.
and their songs and, their AC/DC, but that's what really got them the airplay that they had, worked for years. They had not cracked into especially the American radio until Highway to Hell, really.
Yep.
So
Well,
it was
that's one of the things that got him there, and that's the essence of AC/DC right there. You know what I mean? No apologies. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
And
we're not
deviating from it.
Well, and when they record too, they record live. They set up live, they play live in the studio, and they record it, and then they overdub the guitar and the vocals. That's it. There's no, effects. There's no wah-wah pedals. There's none of that. And a quick story about Eddie Van Halen and Angus. They were playing at one of the big Monsters of Rock shows. I can't remember which one it was, but some guitar tech had put together this whole board of goodies, that you would play with, on the floor, you being a guitar player, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so he brought Angus up on stage because he had a surprise for him. Eddie went along and he had all the new stuff, all the new gadgets, and it was all there, and it was for Angus. Well, Angus took a look at it and he kind of walked around it a little bit and he said, I can't use this.
Right.
And Eddie's eyes were, and he looked over at Eddie and he goes, you take it, mate. You'll know what to do.
Right.
That was it.
That's it.
That's it. I plug into my Marshall. That's what I do.
Yep.
I love that about them. Yeah.
What's funny is those guys both used the same wireless unit for a while.
Yep. Schaefer
wireless unit because it was the one thing back then that had a line boost and it had a certain sound, and both those guys actually there's a bunch. I think Brian May have used one for a while too, but so but it's funny, and not to get too into the weeds, but both those guys were big Marshall users, and of course they sounded different in each of their hands, and both were glorious. You know what I mean? It was just
sure.
It's just iconic players, iconic amps, and all that stuff. So
love
it. AC/DC too. They were when you start really breaking down their tunes, they're a lot less simple than a lot of people seem to think they are.
They're not easy to learn at all. People think they're easy.
Yeah,
really?
Not.
No, it's there's a lot of, they got 2 guitar players obviously, and then but it's not just a few chords. It's like you really got to get the intervals right. Even Back in Black has some intervals that nobody really it doesn't really sound right. First of all, you got to have the right tone. Most people use too much gain. Doesn't sound right, and they can't play like that. So it's that descending lick, that recurring descending lick in Back in Black, single note line.
Well, and what I love about Phil Rudd too, he's my favorite. Not to take away from Simon Wright or Chris Slade, but there's nobody like Phil Rudd, and he makes it look so easy. I used to love to watch him, because I love drummers, and but he said one time in an interview about the secret to how he fits in with the band, and he said, I know when not to play.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. And they're pocket players, all of them, and he holds down the pocket, and it never sounds like it's dragging, but it also never sounds like it's rushed either. You know what I mean? It's just right there.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got, like I said, there's certain intervals going on in a lot of those tunes that if you don't get them right, doesn't sound right.
Well, and as Malcolm said, he always said, if it doesn't swing, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And that's, they had just this, I still today, Malcolm Young, Phil Rudd, and Cliff Williams, best rhythm section ever.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first heard those guys, it was like a steamroller. You know,
it is. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. They're coming at you like a locomotive train, and you better, either get out of the way or you're going to be run right over. And I love that about those guys.
That's
so fun.
You can't be in a bad mood listening to AC/DC. It's just,
I just said that online.
If you're looking for something to pick you up, if you're looking for something to make you feel invincible, that's one of my go-tos for sure.
I was going to write an article about that, about like if you need to, like, you want to pick a fight with somebody, or you're in a conflict, listen to TNT, or you've had enough and you're not giving anymore, listen to If You Want Blood, You Got It. Right. I mean, there's a song for every mood.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. And to this day, they're one of the few bands that still, there's a few of them out there that do it to me still, but they're one of the bands that whenever they come on anywhere, wherever I am, I first of all, I stop and listen, but they always give me chills. Especially, like Thunderstruck, the whole build up to when Thunderstruck starts, the whole intro, everything, getting up into the chorus, every time. It never gets old.
And there's a cool paranormal story to Razor's Edge.
Really?
Is that, and I don't know what song it was, but they came back one night after recording, and there were backing vocals on one of the songs that sounded just like Bon.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting.
That's very cool.
I know. Yeah. I wish I knew which song it was, and it came from a good source. It was somebody that had talked to, I think, Angus's wife or something on a train. Right. They were all on the same train together. And she told him that story, that they came in and there were these vocals that were not recorded the day before, but they were there the next day.
Did they leave them there for the album?
I don't know. I wish I did know, but I don't.
Yeah, that would be amazing to hear that, wouldn't it? If they indeed left it in the mix,
that would be awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, next time you and Bon have a chat, you can ask him about it.
Yeah,
I know. I don't know what he there was something about that we're going to partner up on something in the future, is what I got from the dream. So I don't know exactly what that is yet, but he said that we were going to be working together.
That's very cool.
That's cool.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm up for it.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait to see what that is. Oh my goch. Well, Susan, I have kept you much longer than I said that I would, and it is just so much fun. Thank you so much.
Having a great time. You know me. I mean, I love talking about those guys and the paranormal too. I mean, and it all kind of mixes together.
It does. It really does. Yeah. The two worlds really blend together.
It's amazing. Absolutely.
So I wonder, because I mean, obviously, when you're talking about music, you're talking about recording, you're talking about mics in the room, open mics. Makes you wonder how many things were caught.
Yeah.
On recordings or accidentally or whatever throughout the years that may be out there, stories like that.
Oh God, yeah. No, they have some. I know, like Mike Frazier, who has, been the engineer on many of their albums. He's given a lot of recently given a lot of interviews about what it was like to be in the studio doing those albums, and what a great place to be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Oh, well, I said a couple of times now, like, if you want to go investigate ghosts, like, marry a musician, because he has all the best audio equipment.
Yeah, there you go.
She's like, I wish I had one of these. I'm like, I got it. Yeah. Already. Yeah.
So I'm already coming up with ideas like, okay, well, what if I wanted to do this type of an experiment? Could you finagle the audio to make that happen?
Definitely. Awesome. Yeah. No, to have good audio, I love all the stuff that they have now. They have so many different things now, so many gadgets, if you will, of picking up ghosts, people talking when you can't hear it audibly, but it comes back on the tape, and
everything.
Oh, it's amazing.
I like the box, like the spirit box thing.
Yeah.
They actually can talk back and forth. I've seen a lot of that on YouTube and stuff like that. So they've got so many things now,
And they're using like AI now too. There's a new app that I've gotten. It's a brand new one. So obviously we're all like still like using it, but basically it uses kind of the same technology as the spirit box, but instead of having words, it takes those words and converts it. The AI takes the words that I guess the spirit can choose and creates a picture. It's really crazy. We've gotten some strange things from it. So it's really cool.
Oh yeah. There's a lot out there, we don't realize, how that's what fascinates me is how big things are, we see this 3-dimensional little show,
right?
And there's so much beyond that. And so I like to think that, Malcolm's still jamming, Eddie and all those guys, Eddie Money, everybody, Leslie, Leslie passed a couple years ago now. And, it's, and I hear it's funny because I hear one of them on the radio every day. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't hear somebody that I actually, got to interact with at some point.
I knew that was going to happen. The dog is walking around and he keeps like getting his head under the cord of the light. I know. You might have to. So I was just waiting for it to happen. It's his cue of like, you know what? I'm going to be really annoying. So you take me out.
It's time for a walk. Who knows?
There you go. That's good. That's good. Thank you. But yeah, I agree. There are so many fun things out there, but I am so excited that we got the chance to talk again. I would love to, of course, do it again anytime you are up for it.
I love talking about all this stuff,
Yeah, and if you're out here near Ohio, we got lots of ghost stuff here. So let me know if you come out this way.
Yeah, definitely.
All kinds of fun things we could do.
I will consider Waverly over Bobby Mackey's. So
yes. Well, the Ohio State Reformatory, I mean, maybe you'll be okay. I don't know how you are with the prisons. I didn't think it was that bad, really. Like I really didn't get. I didn't get like a bad vibe from it.
It's really interesting and stuff. I wasn't like freaked out or anything like that. It is cool to be in there and see and all that.
I mean, it's a prison, but it wasn't like it wasn't overly like freaky. I don't think.
That's good. Yeah.
Just
so much energy. My daughter is a forensic psychologist. And
that's awesome.
She used to work at San Quentin.
Oh wow.
Literally.
Oh my gosh.
And she had to live in a house on grounds during the week. And I went to visit her and her fiance and then her husband. So I had to sleep in a house on the grounds of San Quentin. And I'm not kidding. It creeped me out so badly because it's such a massive building.
Right.
And it was built for like 3,000. I think there's like 5,000 inmates in there.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm feeling the energy coming off the building itself. I mean, just all the people in it. And one night I was trying to fall asleep and I'm laying there and all this creepy voice, it was so creepy, says in my ear, you're breathing the same air as Scott Peterson in The Night Stalker. Nighty night.
That's quite.
Yep.
No, ma'am.
Right.
I'm like, nope. I just, I mean, the closest I got to that place was she drove around it one time because I couldn't go in there. I mean, the security is too high there. But she did drive around it one day, and just the pain coming out of that building. But Scott Peterson and the Night Stalker were both there when I stayed there. And the Night Stalker now is past, Richard Ramirez, but Scott Peterson's still there.
Wow.
Unless they moved him. I don't know.
Wow. I didn't realize he was at San Quentin. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I could do
I
without that voice.
I don't want that for a neighbor. That's not good neighbors. No.
No.
Yeah.
Oh
never. Not a big fan of prisons.
Oh my gosh. They don't bother me. I actually almost got a job at one once, but your daughter, man, she's a badass. A forensic psychologist. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, she works for the state, now, but she worked at San Quentin for quite a while, and worked at the Napa State Mental Institution for quite a while. And so, but she's not as she's not affected as like I am, like I couldn't work in a place like that. I would be like a mess.
Yeah, I think you get used to it too. Sorry, Dave's taking the dogs out. They were like going
Bye,
crazy.
Dave.
He's just letting them out back. He'll be right back. But I think you get used to it, like you get used to the vibe. Like when I worked, like I was saying, when I worked at that old like state hospital, people that weren't used to it, they come in and they were just like, nope. Like it's just a creepy, icky vibe. But I think like when you're there for a while, you just get used to it. It almost becomes just familiar to you. And I don't know. I get where your daughter's coming from. I think that would be really, really fascinating to work in forensic psychology. So brain is fascinating to me. So, which is also why I like ghosts, because the mind continues on. So, what is the mind made up of? That's what I find so fascinating.
I don't know if we have time, but I got a great prison ghost story for you.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now my sister was also in the Army and then worked at Leavenworth Prison for 15 years.
Wow.
So, I'm mush. I can't do this kind of stuff. I just would never be able to hold down a job like that ever. But they had a very interesting thing happen at, I think it was, I want to say Leavenworth's got 3 prisons. So I'm pretty sure it was the state prison. But they had a gentleman there who was from the East Coast, part of the mafia. He was in a coma. He was dying. Yeah. Okay. So the family came to see him, and they called in a priest called Father Applegate to come and give him his last rites. Okay. So that morning, a man showed up dressed in very strange, dark clothing. Now, when you go into a place like that, you have to sign in at different spots, and you're being videotaped the whole time. Okay. So this gentleman came in, and he gave the man the last rites. Now, when somebody's in that condition, there's also another inmate in the cell with him. So the videotape shows while the last rites were being given to this prisoner, the inmate looks like he's praying, like he's sitting in a chair with his head down. Now, he gives him last rites, and he leaves. Okay. So they bring food that doesn't get eaten. They bring drinks that don't get, drunk. And so after this gentleman leaves, the inmate is pouring out the orange juice that was left into the sink.
Yeah.
The guy in the coma sits straight up in bed and says, "Don't pour that out. I want to drink it." So now he's not in a coma.
Right.
He's, aware of everything.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how long he lived after this, but he did live for a bit. But the weird thing is that afternoon, Father Applegate shows up. Now, he's from Leavenworth. He's a younger man. He's dressed in modern clothing, and he's the real priest that they called. So the prison, of course, red lights go off like, wait a minute. There was already a priest in here this morning.
Yeah.
So they go back, and his signature is in each checkpoint.
Yeah.
But he doesn't appear on any of the video.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that just gave me
Boy, that's
chills.
weird.
Wow. That's crazy.
There are guards today that won't talk about it because they touched the guy. They escorted him in.
Right.
Man,
and the real Father Applegate showed up in the afternoon, and the prison went off the charts there. What do you mean? We already had it. He was already here. But the guy that came in the morning, he doesn't show up on the video.
That's crazy. And obviously, like, the cellmate didn't notice anything weird either. I mean, this guy must have looked like a person, like a regular
Yeah.
person.
Oh, yeah. He was a person.
Crazy.
Definitely a physical person. But yeah, when you look at the videotape, it shows the guy in bed.
Yeah.
And the inmate with his head down like he's praying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no priest.
That's crazy. Wow.
So,
Ugh.
yeah.
Ugh.
Creepy stuff.
Yeah, that's like maybe a priest working overtime in the afterlife.
Well, I tried to
Done
figure
your
that
thing,
out.
bud.
You know, I tried to figure out like maybe there was an Applegate that didn't serve out his sentence
Oh.
because I think it was a soul exchange. I
Oh,
think that the
interesting.
priest that showed up
Yeah.
exchanged souls with the guy that was dying and spent how many weeks left that he had on
Yeah.
his sentence. I don't know.
Wow.
That's all I could make sense of. You
Hmm.
know, I was trying to make sense
Yeah.
of why, you know, who
Right.
this guy was. You know, all of a sudden this guy wasn't sick. You know, he wasn't in a coma anymore.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knew about
that's wild.
he knew about the orange juice. Which
Yes,
theoretically the guy in the coma shouldn't know anything about the orange juice.
Not at all. And no, he
Crazy.
demanded, you know, I want to drink that.
I want to drink that.
Like, whoa.
Really looking forward to that orange juice.
Yeah. Well, you know, they say that Al Capone, when he was in Alcatraz,
Mhm.
he used to scream every night at somebody called Jimmy wouldn't leave him alone.
Wow.
So he was haunted every night that he was in Alcatraz.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
I
crazy.
don't know that either.
Yep.
I knew
Crazy.
he'd seen like something in Alcatraz, but I didn't know the whole story about it. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously somebody he had offed.
Right?
Right.
You know, that figured out a way to come
A
back
little
and
haunted.
visit.
Right? Yeah. You've got Al Capone. He can't go anywhere.
Yep, I gotcha. You know, you're stuck. So
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow.
very cool, but creepy stuff,
Yeah.
which
Agreed.
we love.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
The creepier, the better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
No idea how to explain that stuff. Yeah.
No.
Yep.
That's wild. And I'm gonna be thinking about that prison
Yeah.
preacher guy for a
Yeah,
while.
I know.
You
I
make that
know.
stuff up. It's better in movies.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. Dogs, I think, are a little scratching to be let in. But well, thank you so much, Susan. It's been amazing, as always.
Thank you. You know,
And
I love talking about all of it, and I really appreciate you having me on. And you know, anytime you need me, just give me a call.
absolutely, you know I will. And for everyone who has enjoyed this, there actually will be a part 2 coming up soon on Mind Forked, Akashi Chris's channel. It's Lulu in the background, giving her 2 cents. So date to be determined, but I think you guys will be getting a little more into the book you wrote, past lives, all of that fun kind of woo. So I can't wait to see the conversation you guys have. I know it's going to be amazing. You're going to love Chris. She's a riot. She's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
you guys
to
will have
it.
a great time.
Well, thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Of course. And do you want to tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your info, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I have a website, susanmasino.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and all 6 of my books are on Amazon.com. So
Yes. So go buy them. And I will have the links in the description below for you guys for all of that.
thank you so much.
All right.
Susan.
Thanks so much, Susan.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm glad you joined us during this kind of special episode tonight. We had a lot of fun. And let me get this. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on Thursday for our live show at 9 p.m. Eastern. Bye.
I grabbed my gold and my heart and soul shoes and walked among the groups of 2. It's not ideal, it's just how we feel. It's a shame we're easily amused. no coffee talk and only one way to please. It's a shame what you do moves me. You let go of all this forward motion to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Yeah, I'm not looking for a windswept view. Our change has changed. Nothing's new. Right on new song. That knows. This forward motion.